All right, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to our June Chamber Luncheon. We're pleased that you have chosen to join us here today. Ms. Tim Thornell, I get the privilege of serving as the chairman of Greater Cheyenne Chamber of Commerce this year. In my spare time, I run the Cheyenne Regional Medical Center. First, I'm thrilled to recognize our presenting sponsor today for today's luncheon, the Alzheimer's Association Wyoming chapter. Representing them today is Valerie Lombardi. Please welcome Valerie to the Alzheimer's Association. Valerie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Valerie Lombardi, like the trophy. And I'm the executive director of the Wyoming chapter. And I'm so thankful and delighted to be here today with all of you. This is my opportunity to meet many of you for the first time. So, hi. Okay. So before I turn the microphone over to you, I just want to make one brief clarification. While we're delighted to be here and sponsor your luncheon, the association's intention was to really be here to talk about Alzheimer's Brain Awareness Month. That's what June is, and brain health is important right now. So we wear the color purple because we're not red, we're not blue. We're completely bipartisan. And so while I want you to totally go out there and vote for whoever you want to vote for, I can't endorse anyone or talk about it. So all we're going to talk about today is Alzheimer's Brain Awareness, and we're going to talk about the walk in Cheyenne on October 10th. And we want you to vote with your feet and maybe come out and walk with us. If you want to volunteer, you walk, you want the Cheyenne Regional Medical Center to sponsor, whatever you want to do, I'm here to talk to you. And I'm super excited for you guys to learn more from Adi, so I'm going to turn it over to him. Thank you again for having us. We really appreciate you and all that you do.
Thanks, Val. My name's Adi Crook. If for doing that. I'm also here today with Shanda Snook. She's our Wyoming representative. And just to kick us off, we have a presentation. There we go. So just from a show of hands, how many people here have been impacted by Alzheimer's or dementia? Look around the room. I feel like that's a testament to the work that we're doing. So going into the next slide, I want to show you a little bit of the 2026 statistics. So if you see, there's currently 7 million people that are impacted by Alzheimer's in the United States, and that number is supposed to more than double by 2050. There are currently over 14 million hours of work that's being put towards supporting people with Alzheimer's, and it is unpaid. And more importantly, it also currently kills more people than prostate cancer. And there's one other one combined. Sorry, I thought I would have a thing. But anyways, don't worry about me. So going into the next slide, the Alzheimer's Association, we have this amazing vision, and that is to create a world without Alzheimer's and any other form of dementia, and we are making huge progress in that. So going into the next slide, we are made tremendous impact within the last 5 years. And just to show you a little bit of that, we currently, in the last 5 years, we have 3 FDA-approved blood tests and 2 important treatments that have come out, like Embi and Kasulna, which have supported people as early as mild cognitive impairment. And right now, we are working on research that is supporting people that are asymptomatic. For the longest time, we have been helping people delay the inevitable, and now we are going to be able to help people prevent before they see sort of cognitive decline. And going into the next slide, so much of this work is done because of the US Pointer Study, and we're focusing immensely on brain health right now. The US Pointer Study was a research of over 2,000 people, and it was to see people that are currently having cognitive decline and seeing if they change their habits, if we would be able to see an impact to their brain health. And the facts are there, and you are able to see that. And this is the recipe that we came up with. And it has been immensely important to, going into the next slide, our 10 brain healthy habits. And you should be working on your brain way before you see any sort of cognitive decline. And this is incredibly important to that. Protecting your brain, wearing helmets, continuing to educate yourself, continuing to eat healthy. And I know a lot of us need to hear this, but making sure that you are getting enough sleep. I know I need to hear that. And I'm sure you're asking yourself, how are they managing to do all of this free education, providing resources, advocacy, support, care, and more importantly, how can I get involved? How can my company get involved? That's a great question, and I can answer that for you right now. So, if you go in the back room after, Shanda will introduce you to the Walk to End Alzheimer's. So that is a local event that happens on October 10th. It'll be at the Capitol. And make sure to register your team, your friends, your family, your coworkers, whatever that looks like. It is completely free to register, and we'd love to see you there. Thank you, everyone, for your time today. We're excited to be the sponsors.
All right. Thank you for that. I really appreciate spending a little bit of time this afternoon being educated on dementia prevention. I'd also this time like to recognize our silver sponsors for today's luncheon. And we ask that you stand and be recognized when we mention your name. DAP CPA, Galaxy's Gruntwork, okay, and Bio Support. Okay. We'd also like to mention our bronze sponsors for today's luncheon. Black Cat Steel Erection and Crane Services, Breeze Through Car Wash, yep, Equipment Share, Breast Employment Professionals, Hilltop Bank, and MHP. Thank you all for your generous support. I would now like to ask Pat Ashworth to come from Express Employment Professionals and the Red Carpet Committee to come forward and introduce our new members for this month.
And again, I'm Pat Ashworth, a golf clothing, so there's that. I'm with Express Employment, and I'm an ambassador for the Chamber Red Carpet Committee. We welcome new members to the Chamber through ribbon cuttings, and today it's my pleasure to introduce possibly 10 new members. But before I get started, is anybody from Element Earth in the audience? Or Interstate Roofing? Oh, okay, perfect. I'll introduce you. So our first new member is Galaxy's Gruntworks and owner Joseph Kibler and the Grunts. Good name for a band. From across the stars, Galaxy's Gruntworks takes the hassle out of getting things done around your home base and backyard with reliable home maintenance and landscaping services you can count on. The team at Galaxy's Gruntworks is committed to putting excellence into every job, no matter the size. Now let's welcome Element Church. And I believe Brendan Anderson. Perfect. Element Church exists to help guide people to experience life to its fullest, connect into meaningful relationships, and make a lasting impression. Our next new member is Mountain Lakes Bookkeeping with owner Michelle Stevenson. Mountain Lakes Bookkeeping helps small business owners stay financially organized so they can focus on growing their business. Michelle loves working with numbers so her clients don't have to, saving them time and helping them stay informed and profitable. Now welcome Mad Flavors, food truck owned by Gina and Emmanuel Whiting. Mad Flavors is a mobile truck here in Cheyenne with fresh, homemade, quality food and fair prices. Mad Flavors also caters events from weddings, corporate or business luncheons, birthdays, retirement, baby showers, celebration of life, and graduations. Next, welcome Cheyenne-Laramie County Economic Development Joint Powers Board with members Christy Wilson and Dr. J.J. Chen. The Cheyenne-Laramie County Economic Development Joint Powers Board is a partnership between the City of Cheyenne and Laramie County focused on supporting economic growth, local businesses, job creation, and community development through grants and loans that strengthen the region's future. Our next new member is Interstate Roofing. And I believe that is Jordan Perot. Perfect. At Interstate Roofing, we take pride in delivering dependable roofing solutions built to handle Wyoming's hard wind, hail, and snow. Located on Van Lennon in Cheyenne, our team specializes in quality craftsmanship, honest service, and protecting homes and businesses with roofs built to last. Now welcome Olive and Herb and owner Thomas Schlegel. Olive and Herb is a specialty shop in Cheyenne that offers premium olive oils, balsamic vinegars, herbs, spices, and gourmet kitchen products. Known for its welcoming atmosphere and curated selection, Olive and Herb helps customers discover unique flavors for cooking, entertaining, and gift giving. Now help me welcome Frosty's Frosty with Diana and Michael Sprosty. Frosty's Frosty is a family-owned frozen treat company servicing Wyoming, Colorado, and Utah with homemade popsicles, ice cream, and fun event catering experiences. From the farmers market and school events to weddings and corporate gatherings, we focus on fresh flavors, friendly service, and creating memorable moments for the community. Now welcome Open Stories with Natalie Mendez and Matt Vessel. Open Range Storage provides secure, convenient self-storage solutions for Cheyenne with drive-up access, gated entry, and a variety of unit sizes for personal, business, and vehicle storage needs. Conveniently located near I-25 and I-80, the facility is committed to affordability, customer service, and giving residents and businesses peace of mind when storing their belongings. And finally, help me welcome SWI LLC and Stephanie and Alan Olson. SWI LLC is a Wyoming-based family-owned fencing company providing commercial, industrial, governmental, and residential fencing solutions. With locations in Cheyenne and Cody, SWI takes pride in delivering reliable service, skilled craftsmanship, and strong community relationships built on hard work and family values. Welcome SWI and all of our new members.
Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to see all of you. About a month and a half ago, I was sitting at Hickam Field in Hawaii getting a briefing from a general from the Space Force. And as we were eating breakfast in this beautiful setting, he said, "Look up." And we did. And what we saw was chunks of wall gone from the side. We didn't know what that was yet. But what we found out later was that is where the Japanese strafed Americans sitting, eating breakfast. We were asleep at the switch, right? But it wasn't very much longer after that the United States entered the war, and ultimately we invaded Europe at D-Day on June 6th, which is tomorrow. A sleeping giant, as the Japanese general said. Our ability as Americans to embrace what we can do about our democracy is actually voting. right? So I'm happy to have this forum today, and we look forward to the discussion. I just want all of us to take a minute tomorrow and think what Americans before us, what price they paid. We will commit to never being asleep at the switch as Americans. Thank you. Couple quick things for you, because I know we want to get the program. One annual banquet is really here's all the events that we have coming up during Frontier Days. So our Partners in Prosperity Luncheon has changed just a little bit. It's going to be a get everybody out to the rodeo that's going to occur on Friday. So just start to make plans. Also have Six Penny coming, Fifth and Six Penny coming up this year. Commissioner Gunner Mom just today, and I asked Gunner to come forward and just talk a bit about what Six Penny is going to mean for us and what it has mean for our community. Please welcome Gunner.
Thank you, Dale. Thank you, chamber members. Yeah, it's grateful for the opportunity to tell you a little bit about the upcoming Sixth Penny. But when I thought about the limited time and wanting to get to the program, I thought it was maybe more important to look at how we got to where we are and what we've done in the past with that Sixth Penny and what it's meant for our community. So I thought when we first start to talk about the Sixth Penny, we're talking about one of the most successful examples of local voters investing in our future. For decades, residents of Laramie County have repeatedly made the choice to invest in the community they call home. The Sixth Penny has never been about government deciding what's important. It has been about voters deciding what's important to them. And because of those decisions, our community today is very different than it did just a generation ago. Those investments generally fall into three categories: infrastructure, public safety, and community enhancements. So let's look at some historical projects that we've been able to do with infrastructure. When people hear the word infrastructure, they often think of roads and bridges. And certainly, Penny has delivered on that, from Christian path to road improvements throughout communities, Cheyenne projects in Alvin and Burns, and unincorporated Laramie County. These investments have improved safety, reduced maintenance costs, and kept people and commerce moving. But infrastructure is more than pavement. The award-winning Laramie County Library is infrastructure. A modern library provides access to technology, workforce development, education, literacy programs, and community resources. It is every bit as essential to a thriving community as a road, a water line, or a bridge. Sixth Penny is also on critical water and sewer projects in our small community. These aren't glamorous projects, but they're some of the most important. Our small communities rely on revenue collected from property taxes. There is no way that they could complete these projects that are needed to just provide basic services to their community without the optional sales tax. Second, we look at public safety. Public safety has transformed how we protect our residents. The Public Safety Center downtown that houses our police force and our 911 communications center was a voter-approved Sixth Penny project. In Pine Bluff, improvements to the railroad crossing have increased safety for residents, travelers, and first responders. In Alvin and throughout Laramie County, we have built fire stations funded by voters' decisions to protect and strengthen emergency response for our rural residents. These investments haven't stopped with buildings. Modern communication systems for our sheriff's department, police departments, dispatch centers, and first responders ensure that when emergencies happen, agencies can communicate and effectively. These upgrades have touched all 4 municipal governments and Laramie County. And I'm just going to say, if I ever have to buy another radio like that today, I'm looking forward to most as being done with as a commissioner, because I bought more radio 7 years as a commissioner than I ever would have had. Motorola really has it going on. They've got a good business model. Finally, there's community enhancements. Some of the most visible and beloved projects funded by the Sixth Penny are ones that bring people together. Today, more than 50 miles of greenway interconnect our community here in Cheyenne, providing valuable pathways for quality of life, encourage recreation, and create connections throughout our community. Which was approved on this last ballot, is a tremendous example of successful community investment. Every day, it serves seniors across our county meals, activities, transportation services, and opportunities for social connection. Its popularity and utilization demonstrate just how important it is it has become to maintain quality of life for thousands of residents. Likewise, the Archer Event Center has become one of the most heavily utilized facilities in our state. From livestock shows and trade expos to weddings and community events, and unfortunately, even memorial services, the facility has exceeded expectations. Archer is booked nearly every single weekend of the year, 100,000 square feet, and we are out of space. I think that is a testament to this community and to the voters who saw the vision of that project. Albin and Burns community buildings funded through voter-approved projects serve as gathering places for residents. They host everything from fundraisers and community celebrations to public meetings, and they are places where communities can come together during both the happiest and the most difficult times. But when you look across Laramie County, it becomes clear that these projects are not isolated investments. Together, they tell a story of a community that believes in itself. Every road improved, every fire station built, every library program offered, every mile of greenway completed, every senior served, every event hosted, and every public safety upgrade made possible through the sixth penny has been selected and approved by you. Those investments have created a community that we can be proud of. They have demonstrated that when residents are willing to invest in the future, others notice, businesses notice, families notice, there's notice. The result is a community that continues to attract residents, new jobs, new opportunities. Not because someone else invested for us, but because we invested first. That is the story of our sixth penny, and it is ultimately a story of local control, local vision, and local pride. And it is proof that when voters come together around a shared vision for their future, there is no limit to what our community can achieve. So I hope that you all do your research this summer on the various projects that will be lumped in categories again, like they have been for transparency of community enhancements, infrastructure, and public safety, programs and projects for every community in Laramie County, Pine Bluffs, Albin, Burns, Cheyenne, Laramie County. I'm sure you'll have plenty of opportunity to hear about each individual project, various meetings throughout the summer. I encourage you to do your research and continue to invest in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll do our free lunch drawing. I'm always looking for somebody honest to do my drawing, but Kaylee was sitting right there, so that's all good. Karen Emmerich. So see on my staff, and we'll just eight 6240. 388-6240. Oh, thank you. That was Dennis and his son from Capital Roofing, and they donated back. Thank you, guys. Now I'd like to ask Tim Thornell, your chairman, to come back to the stage, and he'll introduce our program.
All right. I think we can all agree we live in interesting and seemingly unprecedented times. Certainly in the coming years, there'll be states in our great nation that advance their citizens and their fortunes, while others will struggle to even maintain their status quo. One of the keys to Wyoming's future is who will be our next governor. Our goal is that the future generations will have a place that they can call home. It's prosperous and maintains the attributes that we all cherish. Today, we are pleased to hold our governor's forum, which will help many of you make your choice for the selection of the governor of the great state of Wyoming. Our format today is not a debate forum, right? It's just a series of questions that we'll ask our candidates. We'll give them a chance to have opening and closing statements. We'll ask each candidate the same question, so they'll get a fair opportunity to answer every question that I ask them. And the responses will be timed, so it'll be a challenge itself. not because they're politicians, because they're tough questions. Now, if you'll join me in welcoming our candidates to the stage, Superintendent of Public Instruction, Megan Egenfelder, State Senator Eric Barlow, Mr. Brent Bean. Wherever you want. All right. Well, thank you for joining us this afternoon. And I can feel the spotlights on you. So just, you know, give you a little bit of pressure there. But you guys are used to it. And obviously you want more. That's why you want to be in the governor's seat. So let's start off and have give each of you, a couple minutes here to introduce yourself. Megan, you're sitting right next to me.
Perfect. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you all in Cheyenne. I've lived here on and off over the years. My husband grew up in Cheyenne. If you know my father-in-law, Ken Dugas, he's a bit of a legend within the Cheyenne Chamber. Now I'm from Casper. My husband holds that against me, but I hope you guys don't. I am a Wyoming ranch kid, 6th generation, who watched parents in class after graduating from Wyoming in our mineral industry with coal and oil and gas. And I believe that Wyoming is worth fighting for. And this race for governor is truly a race for the future of Wyoming. And then we have a decision to make. Will we accept status quo, or will we decide that Wyoming is meant to lead? Because when you see what's happening across this country, you see that our largest city of America, we have a literal socialist leading them. We see these radical environmental groups, they're trying to attack the very industries that keep us going. And so we need strong leadership in the governor's office. It's going to fight for our way of life, our conservative values. That's who I am. That's why I bring the president's endorsement as well as the Higgman's endorsement. And we need someone who's going to be all in on the mineral industry, other economic drivers in the state of Wyoming. Someone who is tired of our young people leaving the state of Wyoming, who wants to fill the hard to fill vacancies that you have in your jobs. That's the type of person we need in this office that is here with solutions, has the know-how and expertise to be able to get it done. Wyoming should not just be settling for status quo, and we should certainly not be just surviving, but truly thriving and setting that bar for the rest of this country to follow, because this country is looking for leadership, and that's what we can bring right here in Wyoming.
Thank you.
Nope. Okay, hey, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Tim. And, folks, we have to remember who we are. We're Americans, and we're Wyoming Americans, and that puts us one step above every other state in the nation. And, I am Brent Bean, and as a Wyoming native, graduate of UW Engineering College, aviator, combat veteran. Folks, I tell you what, this is about leadership. In this state, this country is worth fighting for. I mean, I've witnessed the instate of tyranny. It's horrific. I come back here and over the last 4 years or so, been running around this state, talking with so many incredible people. And, there's a distrust there in government, state government. And my whole campaign is revolves around returning Wyoming to the people, because the people are strongest when the people are freest. And what I mean by that is that we return taxes to the taxpayer. We return education to the parents. We return elections to the voters. We return agriculture to our growers. And of course, we return energy to Wyoming. But folks, everybody's got to get involved. I mean, it's going to take every warrior patriot out there to make this work. And this, I cannot impress how important this election is. I mean, at the national executive level, we have 2 years of a permissive environment, and we need to be able to do it. And we need to be able to make those changes in upright Wyoming, because it takes 2 things. It takes the right people, and it takes the will to do it. And folks, let me tell you, my whole life is about leadership, adult leadership, and I've got the will to do it. So thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Testing 1, 2. Got it. All right. That doesn't count against my 3 minutes. No. Okay. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the hospitality, chamber. Actually, I'm a chamber member in Gillette, and I'm actually wearing my purple bracelets for 10-10-26. I've been wearing it for probably 8 years. As a young woman walked up to me and said, "You may just be, thank you," at the time. She said, "Eric, I've got challenges." It's because we're early on. What is the state of Wyoming? What are we doing? The second bracelet I'm wearing is suicide prevention. Our youngest, middle-aged, and then we have dementia. There's so many things we can work together on. We need to work together on. So it's an honor to be here, and thank you for the work you folks are doing. So it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Eric Barlow. I too am a Wyoming native, fourth generation ranch kid. And what that means to me is 3 generations did the hard work. Give me an opportunity. That wasn't me. My job is expectation. Now we're blessed. My beautiful bride Kelly is here with me, 9th grade sweetheart. She couldn't get away. And we have 2 kids. We have 2 great kids. One who's an attorney, one who's a general contractor. And they're in Wyoming, and we're blessed by that. But we want to do the work with you to build the Wyoming where our kids can choose to stay. That means a robust economy, means thriving communities, and that means a government who knows when to be able to help and when to get the heck out of the way. That's what I bring to this race. We'll talk more, and there's lots of questions. I brought these up here because there's like 27 questions too. But look forward to visiting with you afterwards. We'll be here. If anyone wants to stop by and visit, look forward to that. Thank you for this opportunity.
All right, there we go. Thank you. All right, as we get started here, just one question for all 3 of you. Superintendent, Mr. Bean, Senator, is it okay if I call you by your first names? We are in Wyoming after all. Excellent. All right, our first question, and Mr. Bean, I'm going to start with you. How should Wyoming be funded? And with that loaded question, describe for us a little bit your opinion on our current level of spending, how you would suggest funding the budget, and what we have needs for in the future.
Well, Wyoming should be funded. We need to make sure we fund those essential services of government. I think that's one thing we're looking at across the state is just with the largest budget in our state history just recently passed. We got to figure out, okay, where's all this money actually going? Is it really being spent on those essential services that we have out there? We know that there's a lot of non-essential things that are out there, and that's, some of those may be valid. We just heard about the 6 cent out there that what that ultimately brings to this community. And it really should be about, the people. People should be able to vote for this. Now, as we've seen our residential property tax increase by 73% over the last 6 years or so, highest of any state in the nation. And then we look at the demographics in the state where we are truly a blue-collar retirement state, which is fantastic. That's what makes Wyoming so great. But people just can't afford to live like that, or can't afford to pay their taxes. So when I look at government, I look at all the money being spent toward government. To me, it's about, okay, my objective here is to make sure I'm advocating for the people. I want to keep the people in their home. I want to make sure that those essential services are truly covered. But it's going to take some pragmatic folks, some objective folks to look at those things that may not be, that they may think are essential, or non-essential, that maybe we shouldn't be covering or whatever, or leave it up to the taxpayer to figure that out. But, bottom line is that I'm more concerned about people staying in their homes than I am some of these frivolous things that we end up talking about across the state. So, and I am the one who led the ballot initiative to cut residential property tax by 50% of the assessed value of the primary residence of Wyoming residents, which will be on the November ballot, because I listened to those folks over the last few years just being out there. And then I look at how much money we spend in this state. And again, we're blessed to be such a wealthy state, and we are the wealthiest state per capita in the nation. And we know right now that just with interest alone, if you just take straight numbers, that, our interest to pay for all of residential property tax in itself. That's not where we're going after. We're going after 50%. So my whole thing is accountability, because I do believe, we say it's accountability through audit, trust through transparency. And that's what the folks are looking for, is to restore their trust in our government and all levels of government.
All right. So after you hear 2 minutes of somebody else, you got to make sure you understand the question. Thank you. So I think we're going to stick with state government, right? State of Wyoming. State of Wyoming is funded by sales tax, a portion of the sales tax, and severance tax, minerals. So you take those two, the majority of it. You take them, and federal funds. There's other things that come with it. What Wyoming puts into it is those two things. Now, minerals are paying 50% of bills on a daily basis, and 70% when you consider the earnings of our permanent mineral trust fund. So let's be clear about how Wyoming services are being funded. Minerals, and then the rest of us, what we put in. Local governments, including education to a great extent, is funded by property tax. So we have to keep separate about where these different things are, what's benefiting from these different taxes. Your sixth penny, your fifth penny, that's yours. You get to own it. That's your community that gets to build the community that they want. That's important. So what are our priorities? What are my priorities? Well, first of all, we have constitutional obligations, education being a fundamental one, as you know. And then we go through the Constitution. There are many other things that the legislature is responsible for providing. A justice system, a court system, right? All of those types of things. That's the first tier. We must do those things. That's what the Constitution provides. So it doesn't just suggest it, it says you will do these things. And then we look at the statutes. What the legislature has done for the last 136 years is respond to citizens' needs. And maybe, yes, start a program. And there's no question there can be programs. You should reevaluate programs, their effectiveness, how they should be funded, etc. But that's what the state government funds. Now, in the past budget, and I was a part of that discussion, we actually put money in savings. We didn't spend all of the state's revenue. Money went to savings. And savings is actually paying for 30%. The earnings off savings is paying for 30% of our bills for the state of Wyoming. Think about that. 30% of the money was the University of Wyoming, a bunch of community colleges, helped pay for the DD waiver, etc., came from savings, from the citizens of the state who a long time ago said, we need to put something aside. We need to keep that. Wonder of the world, compounding interest, and help us pay our money. That is powerful. Now, we have boom and bust, right? Because remember how dependent we are on minerals? It's a big deal. 8 times in the last 20 years, we've had a bust. I'm sorry, 4 times in the last 20 years. And we overreact in state government. We overreact because we hope to get. So if the money doesn't come in, what happens? We got to make immediate cuts. So I've been proposing for about 10 years and working with my legislative colleagues to stop a cash-based budget.
Thank you.
Apparently that was the timer.
Right, Megan.
Well, this is a great question, and important for us all to recognize who's paying for the state of Wyoming. And the lion's share is from the mineral industry. We're so blessed in the state of Wyoming that we have natural resources. We are able to maximize revenue from that industry, and then we're able to keep taxes low. Let's face it, we're continuing to have to do that. People are being pushed out of their homes. They can't afford their property taxes. That's a problem. We want to have the lowest possible tax burden on our people. Now, I'm not willing to compromise on services. I'm not willing to compromise on health and safety. If my house is on fire, I want a fire truck to show up, right? Now, we can do this. We can have both of those things true if we have a thriving mineral industry. And that is why you need someone in the governor's office that understands the industry, that has spent their career working on it, and actually knows how to get that done. Now, as we continue to talk about what is the right role of how do we spend, now we know that there's ups and downs, booms and busts within that industry. So how do we prepare for that? Well, that's why we keep a lean government. look at ways that we can create efficiencies and reductions that we can make, and we save when times are good. As was our investment earnings alone are now the second largest contributor to the state's general fund, and that came from the mineral industry. So being very thoughtful about how we save that money that we can use when times are bad. And so I'm currently serving as your state superintendent of public instruction. And this last budget session was only one of two agencies that actually brought a reduced budget to the legislature. Now, this is tough. It's easy to just cut here and there, but to actually roll up your sleeves and decide, how do we prioritize our state government expense? Where do we look to make those reductions? Because again, making sure that we are really tightening our belt in times that we need to be able to justify. And so again, I'll go back. I have a broken record about the mineral industry, but we have to ensure that we have a thriving mineral industry that keeps our state afloat. Then all of our other industries are able to thrive. And that's the expertise that I bring to this position.
All right, thank you. Eric, I'm going to start you off with the next question here. Military, comprised of F.E. Warren Air Force Base, the Wyoming Guard. Just saw General Porter get.
He's leaving. What's that mean? The general is leaving.
He didn't want to intimidate you, so. Combined, they really create the largest employer in the state of Wyoming. F.E. Warren Air Force Base has the Sentinel missile system coming online. The Guard has new aircraft, C-130Js, coming in the next years. What will your efforts include to support our military missions?
Yeah, thank you. So I had serving in the Marine Corps a long time ago, and appreciate all the service of all those of you who have served. And thank you, Brent, for your service. Look, the Wyoming legislature takes on and supports the Wyoming Guard in many ways. I've been at the Yellow Ribbons, I've been at the send-offs for our Guard, and it's been an honor to see those young people, and a few of them are a little older, that go off and serve our country and then come back safely home. Look, and the base here, what a powerful driver for your economy, Wyoming's economy. Remarkable. And there's more opportunities there because as we grow the base and the technologies goes there, those support industries are looking for a place to go. They're looking for a place to actually not just maintain the equipment that they're supposed to, but actually improve it, build more, etc., manufacturing, etc. So I'm 100% supportive. The other thing we talk about recruiting, right? How'd those folks get into the military? I remember the recruiter that recruited me. Well, as folks are coming out of the military, Wyoming needs to be recruiting them back. They're coming with skill, work ethic. And I will, the governor who says to every one of them, welcome back. We think there's a place for you here. Let's make Wyoming a stronger place. Be a part of it. So thank you.
Yeah, really exciting opportunities for the Cheyenne area with these projects coming online. And we want to thank these two gentlemen for their service to our country. I believe the previous tag is in the room, and it was over a decade ago that I went to meet with him and sign up for the National Guard and wasn't able to because of a health issue. So that we do everything for our military and ensure that it's the state of Wyoming. And that's what we need in the governor's office, someone who understands military and what it provides to our country. And so this is within the base, but also for our National Guard. And number one, that starts with leadership, ensuring that you have a governor who is going to think outside the box, really have strong leadership with the adjunct general. It's also about ensuring that we are retaining our servicemen and women. This is incredible. These projects are really going to bring military modernization to Wyoming, to the country. We're going to be leading the United States of America with military modernization with these projects. That's something to be proud of and hang your hat on. But in that, there's going to be a lot of transition and changes in roles, right? And so ensuring that we keep our current servicemen and women, and we look at how that pathway extends to them, and what does that look like in a new role for them. And then in general, really supporting our families, our military families. When you have a guard actually losing money to go to a drill weekend, we got a problem. We need to really have that family life balance for our servicemen and women so we keep them in. And then we also need to honor their families while they're deployed, while they're in service. During my time in office, we fully launched the Purple Star program, in which for schools across the state of Wyoming, we have a designated criteria that you can meet those. And it's all about how you better support children that are in our military families and that often have to be around time. And so those kind of support, that is really what we need to all do. It's on all of us to step up and to support our military families.
Yeah, well, I tell you, I think it's fantastic to see what's happening here at FE1 and just the growth that the improvements in technologies and weapon systems, those kind of things. It's only going to bring great things to this community. I've been around military this nation and all over, of course, all over the world. It's just amazing what military installations bring to surrounding communities. The supporting jobs, the restaurants, the barbershops, whatever they are. So I am very much a pro advocate for our warrant. I mean, absolutely. In fact, I had an opportunity to work with them a few times in a prior life when I was doing nuclear command and control out of Offutt, Nebraska. But it was really, it's really a neat thing to see what's going on here. And of course, even Title 10 folks that are on active duty, and our Title 32 folks are Guard folks. And I see what's going on with these guys, and I'm so happy to see our Guard. But my three primary issues or primary concerns comes down to command and control of the military, and of course, as you look at Article 4, Section 4 of our state constitution, the number one power, I guess, of the governor in general is the commander of military forces. I look primarily, number one is readiness. Number two is family readiness, and of course, as we, it's so important with our families out there, and of course, command climate. That's huge. Okay, because leadership drives it. It really does. I want to grow those younger generations, move them up, start training them for those further upper positions. But folks, our Guard, our active forces here. I mean, it's building wide. We got Naval Reserve up in the northern part of the state with fuel reserves and things. So it's all over the state. And I just think it's fantastic to be living here and how big of a part the military is. And I will always support.
You. All right. Next question. And Megan, I'll start with you. Data centers. Data centers are at the forefront of discussion in many states in America. On one hand, they offer a path for a technologically advanced future with a handful of high-paying jobs. On the other hand, citizens are worried about the use of precious land, water, and power resources. Appreciating that Wyoming is a power-producing state, there are concerns. What is your position on data centers?
You're talking about data centers? Okay, I figured. No, this is a big topic of discussion, not just in Cheyenne, but across the state of Wyoming. And look, we are in an AI arms race with China, and President Trump has been very bullish on data center development. And we have some resources here in the state of Wyoming to keep them going, natural gas and coal to be able to power up. But they have to be right for Wyoming. And so a couple of things that I've been very clear about from day one, protections that need to be in place for Wyoming people. Number one, water, proving that there is not water usage and not pulling from our resources. Two is our electric rates, making sure that we do not have rates that are on the backs of Wyoming people. Third is protecting our constriction and have a work shortage. And fourth is making sure we have people involved in the process. And I understand this week there was a session that was provided to the public, and I'm sure many of you attended it. And we've got to ensure that our processes for any development in the state of Wyoming have ample public participation, that the public is involved in that process because it has to be right for the community. And so that's how we should be balancing development in every area of our state, in every community. So with those protections in place, we can cautiously move forward, but those have to be in place in order for us to do so.
Yeah, as I travel around the state, vast majority of the folks are opposed to these, and I mean they're kind of popping up all over the place. And I think what's going on here is that people have been left out of the loop in a lot of the cases, and ultimately it does come down to the people. This is consent of the governed. Now we can fight China already right now, in the AIRs areas, but we don't necessarily need to build them here to do that. But the people have to be brought in from the get-go. They have to be. So, and what we're seeing, and a lot of people are finding out or starting to realize around the state is that all these projects, whatever they are, whether it's wind, whether it's modular nuclear, stage routes, whatever it is, by the time the people are actually brought into the equation, that the decision's already made. That the legislation, the backdoor deals, whatever they are already made, and hey, these guys are coming in. So, I think that's number one. And I do believe that if the people are brought into the they understand what's going on, then I do believe they'll be far more receptive. To me, I look at this very objectively. Number one, what's the requirement? Two, what's the purpose? And three, what's the return on investment for Wyoming? I don't like the idea of these being built on agricultural ground because, as you guys know, we're half a state. I mean, the Fed owns the other half for the most part, unappropriated land under federal management. And I don't see, if they want to build them on that, if they can somehow get a lease on BLM, then knock themselves out. But we are very limited with corporate or private land here in the state. So water's huge. We know water's huge. It's one of those things that's on the top of my list. And of course, I don't want people to bear any burden down to the additional power requirements or even infrastructure improvements that are going to be required. So it is one of those things I'm looking at very, very, very closely. And right now, I got to hear what's the purpose, what's the requirement, and what's the ROI on this before I go forward with it.
So I think we've covered the topic, right? Water, right? Land, electricity, community, the community ready for it, want it. Have you had those honest discussions? Absolutely. All of those things are important. Also have to think about what's driving the demand. We're part of the demand. Consumerism is part of the demand. Those rectangular devices some of you are looking at right now, that is part of the demand. Whether you're asking it to do something artificially and intelligent, I don't know if those two are together, but anyway, whether you're asking to it or not, it's being optimized on the back end. So if we can be a part of this, and it will use Wyoming energy, by the way. It will be using Wyoming energy if it's in Wyoming. That would be bottom line, straight up for me. And minimal or no Wyoming water. Technology solves a lot of things. A lot of things. Think about directional drilling in the oil and gas field. Reduce the footprint tremendously, beneficial to wildlife, beneficial to so many things. So technology, we can deal with some of these things. And I agree, we need to have honest, well-informed discussions in the communities, and we can move forward in a meaningful way. The thing I would say is, what's the demand? And then what's the reality? Look, if you've been in an oil and gas field, which I live in an oil and gas field, every company shows up, says, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And in the end, there's one company, two companies, maybe three that show up and actually invest and do it the right way. So right now, there's a lot of speculation. You're hearing a lot. But in the end, a lot of that will get weeded out because investment matters. People want certainty. Wyoming, we can provide that if they meet those certain criteria. And I will absolutely be a part of that discussion. Thank you.
There we go. All right, our next question here. Wyoming invests heavily in educating its people, yet many graduates leave the state while employers continue to report workforce shortages, or we hear about the lack of workforce impeding economic growth and diversification. What is your strategy or your platform that you will build for using education, workforce development, and economic development together to retain talent, attract new residents, and improve Wyoming's long-term economic and demographic trajectory?
Well, I tell you, we particularly with public education, K-12, K through 12, I mean, we are spending an inordinate amount of money on it, between roughly about $22,000 per kid per annum. And then, of course, you got capital construction on that, and that jumps up to about $35,000. So that is more than some of our surrounding states, and see better results with them and with those other states. So, there's I don't think it's a money issue. I think what this is a coordination issue. This is, we start getting these businesses involved. With schools to recruit. We were talking about recruiting earlier. One of the things I've learned in some of the counties is that, fire, police, our state troopers, even some of our military, may not actually be going to the assemblies. Remember that we used to go to, and we'd have those guys actually recruiting there. So we have a whole lot of skill sets in this state, and I think as we really push toward that, the CTE, the technical skills, get those back in there, and showing these kids, 'cause, I don't want a state of a bunch of workers when they turn 18. I want these kids to be able to think, but to be able to use their hands. Because we know that some at the age of 17, some will probably drop out, regrettably, but that's the case. They shouldn't be holding anybody else back, and we know that those other parts are gonna be going into the technical field. I mean, we are a predominantly blue collar state. I think it's fantastic, but we gotta start teaching some of those skills, and then, of course, some are gonna go to college. But this is a matter of getting that critical thinking back in there, right? We've gotta teach these kids, and the standards that we have right now, they be set. I don't know why they're not set at least 90% for the next 5 years. We can do that, but something's going on out there, in our education system, and then to tie this to the public or the private sector, I guess, with those skills. We got to get UW involved in here. We got to get them back promoting this. I mean, our engineering college, when I went through it, was fantastic. I'm not sure what it is right now, but I'd like to see some of those big businesses out there come to Wyoming, set brick and mortar here to recruit right out. So there's a disconnect somewhere in there, and I'm trying to figure out where that is. I know it's the education piece is a giant piece. Okay, we have got to give these kids at least the option. But so much of this does have to do with the cost of living in the state. My objective is to lower that cost of living, to give them the opportunity to stay here and give them the opportunity to raise their standard of living. But that's what I'm looking at this whole thing. There's issues out there. We're looking at them right now to see exactly what we need to do and to make that link with the private sector on particular skills.
So, it's been said blue collar several times, and my wife says I just have a dirty collar to say it. Education, K-12 education, public education is a constitutional requirement and a moral imperative. That's what we do to prepare our children for whatever future they want. And as they pick that future, whether it's military service or it's going to a community college or to the university, it's University of Wyoming, but there's other options. That's what we're doing. We're preparing them, or the trades. Right now in this community, what the demand is for trades. For an electrician, someone that knows heating and air conditioning controls. That is a pretty dang good job. In fact, probably pays better than being a veterinarian, even if I was a good veterinarian. Because they're in demand. They are driving the economy right now, skilled trades. So this is about a continuum of education. It's about introducing folks back to working with their hands. It's been great as I've traveled the state, seeing the CTE programs. I give a shout out to Superintendent. She's been promoting this as her predecessor did. How do we get more people young people learning practical skills? And then that sets them up for life, right? This isn't about maybe the vocation they want. Maybe take care of things on their own life and their own spaces. So education is a huge part of that. The other part of this is, all those service sectors that we need, healthcare. We invest tremendously in that. All levels of community college. Now they're doing CNA programs in the high schools. That's important. That's important. Someday I'm going to be in a nursing home. That CNA is going to be looking after me, right? Or nurse. So we've got to have all these skill levels, all the educational opportunities we can possibly put forth so that we have opportunities to grow. For those young families to have an opportunity to live here, thrive here, an economy that works for them so that we can have all of us together building a stronger. Thank you.
Well, if you're like me, you really are tired of young people leaving the state of Wyoming. This is a problem. We've all experienced it. Maybe your son or daughter, or someone that you work with, your friends leaving the state of Wyoming. And we can't just keep talking about it. We have to be about it. We have to solve this problem. And first off, how do we keep young people here in the state of Wyoming? First, start by letting them lead and have a table to solve these issues that they. One we've talked about a lot is education and how we change our system of education about just test, actually having these real world skills and having a connection with the industry. And so as your superintendent, that's exactly what I've prioritized. In fact, 3 years ago, when I was running for superintendent, I was working in the gas business and I jumped to education for this very issue to work to solve the workforce line problem that we have. So what we've done the last couple years is really double down. Number one, on career education. We've now increased our career technic content who take 2 or more courses in a particular way by over 115%. Our kids want to do this, and we know that this is our economy. And so moving away from trying to prepare kids for jobs that don't even exist in Wyoming, because you talk to a young person and they say, well, I'm leaving. I coach the UW women's rugby team, so I ask them all the time when they're graduating, why are you leaving? There's no job for me here. Then you talk to our businesses, like all of you in this room, workforce, we can't fill our jobs. There's a disconnect there. And so how do we not just prepare them, but then also make that connection? And so we've really tried to change, and we're actively involved in the Wyoming accountability model schools in prioritizing work-based learning. So this is where a kid gets out of the classroom, they're learning the same standards, but they're doing it in a work setting with your company. So then you're getting to know them, they're getting to know you, they're getting excited about what they're doing, and they're not trapped in a classroom. And that's working. That's exactly what we should be doing. And we can do even more across the state of Wyoming. And then the other thing that's been important is how we keep our communities affordable, right? Because even if a kid has a great job here, they love it, they want to stay, they can't afford to buy a house, what are they going to do? And then we've all seen that, right? Of like, I can't even buy a house. And it's deflating for a young person, and let alone to pay the property taxes, et cetera. So making sure that we keep the cost of living down, that we have housing even to begin with. I don't know if we'll get into housing, but by how we have that available, and then we ensure that they have communities where they can really thrive.
Great, thank you. We just passed the top of the hour, but I see there a very engaged, interested audience. So I'm going to ask at least one, maybe 2 questions. And Eric, I'll start with you for this next one. Now, of course, I'm not going to let you leave the stage without talking about healthcare, right? Near and dear to my heart, right? Nationwide, we know healthcare is a concern. Nationwide, we know healthcare represents 18, 19, almost 20% of our GDP. It's a big component of our lives. In Wyoming, healthcare is also a major concern. Affordability is an issue, as well as access to healthcare. So what would you do to address these concerns?
The last 14 years, I've served in the Wyoming legislature. For 12 of those years, I've been on the Labor, Health, and Social Services Committee. The only longer serving member on that committee in the Wyoming legislature is Charlie Scott. Well, let's be honest, he's been in the legislature for 1/3 of statehood. So let's get clear about that. But you learn a lot. You learn a lot from providers, from patients, and from payers. And I continue to learn. We are in a very challenging health environment right now. I'm self-employed. Kelly and I are self-employed business people. Guess what that means? You're self-insured. You are self-insured. You make decisions about your health care, make decisions about your health habits, because there's no one there picking up the bill. It's you. The first thing I'll do as governor, and actually the groundwork has already started, is when we're successful on August 18th, which is the Republican Primary Day, thank you. On the 19th, we're going to initiate a healthcare task force. And it's going to be bringing leaders from across the state, from the payer community, from the provider community, from the consumer community, from patients, together, and we're going to map out a plan, a way forward for Wyoming that works in Wyoming. We've heard about the Wyoming way in healthcare. I've heard about it a long time. Now I'm ready, we're ready to do the work to make a difference for Wyoming healthcare. All the different components, affordability, access, etc. We have to do real work in this, and it has to be concentrated. And we have talented people, including Tim on this stage, and many others across the state who are ready to do that work because it's too important. It's too important for our economy, for our communities, to be honest, for all of us individually. If we don't get this, get after it soon. Thank you.
Well, this is a huge issue for employers, right? It's not just for healthcare patients. And look, we've all been patients in this system. I'm a cancer survivor myself. Lost my mother way too young because of access, and my husband is a provider. And so we talk a lot about this because it's again not just a patient issue, not just a healthcare issue. This is an economic development issue, and you cannot keep people here if you can't afford healthcare with insurance. And so all of you in this room are likely struggling with that. And so number one is how do we reduce the cost of insurance? How do we bring those premiums down? And there's a lot of discussion right now about reinsurance state programs. We have to be creative about this and how we bring premiums down. And then it's about access, right? My husband, they have patients coming from Rollins to Laramie, OB patients. If you want to have a baby, you got to travel on I-80 in the winter to get there. That's a problem. We have these healthcare deserts that we have to solve and look at shared services and how we expand. And then it's about our providers, even having a provider there, being able to recruit them to your facility. The WAMI program, which my husband was a part of, is an incentive-based program to get our providers back to the state of Wyoming. And so we need to look at how we do have programs like that to get providers in the state of Wyoming. How do we incentivize them here? Telehealth, new technology. We have to think creative, out of the box. We've been talking about it for a really long time, and we need to start solving it. Thank you.
Brent. Yeah, obviously a huge issue when we spend an inordinate amount of money on this annually in our budget. And it's, just over the last year, particularly at the turn of the year, I've received so many calls from folks whose insurance rates not just doubled, but went up tenfold. And so now they can't pay it anymore. So now they're doing self-insurance. So what ends up happening there, if they can even do it, but what ends up happening there is they go to the emergency room, for some of those things that normally they probably wouldn't have gone there. So of course, then that takes the specialization away, or that attention away from whatever other people very well have gone in there. So we know that it's a huge issue. All the doctors, all the nurses around the state with whom I've had the opportunity to speak, it's just there's so many incredible ideas out there. And then of course you hear about all these folks because obviously access, it's access to care, it's ability, it's a specialized care, and we do. We have 6 people per square mile in the state. There's no way we're going to have a level trauma center in everybody's backyard. That's just not going to work. So, when you look at mobilized care, when you look at telehealth, those kind of things, especially with technology the way it is right now, with the midwifery program, we know deserts out. And there's so many things that we can do. But I do think that we got to really take a look at tort reform also, because malpractice insurance is through the roof for some of these folks, some of these healthcare providers. And when you look at since 1975, the number of healthcare providers has pretty much doubled. But the number of supporting entities, whether it's the millers, all these other folks that deal with that's gone up 3,000%. And that's really what we're dealing with here. And then of course, these huge lawsuits that come out. So it's an all it's there's so many parts of this that we got to look at, somehow make it all work. The thing is in Wyoming, I totally believe we can do it. Because with our small population and with our immense wealth, we can make this work.
Great. And one of the benefits of being moderator is I get to choose what we do next. I'm going to ask one last question, but I'm asking you to limit it just a minute and a half. A question on healthcare, right? So last year, Congress passed the One Big Beautiful Bill. Embedded in that bill was distribution of money for healthcare in the rural transformation fund, right? $50 billion. Wyoming this year was allocated $205 million for this year, the second largest allotment of funds on a per capita basis here in Wyoming. right? So we have a potential benefit to really help propel healthcare here in our state. So with that, what are some of your thoughts and ideas on the best use of rural healthcare transformation? Again, just about a minute and a half. Megan.
Well, first, we have an accepted plan, so we can start moving forward, because I think we were waiting for a long time. Other states were starting to spend. Our initial plan had been about creating a fund. So that's where we would just use the interest and earnings to have that long term, because the fact of the matter about these funds is it's one time, right? And we've got to create a system that's sustainable long term today and then not worry about it. And so I think, some of the priorities there, number one is emergency services, looking at how we support those. I mean, we have to stop the bleeding, literally. And so focusing on those. Number two is about workforce, exactly what we were just talking about, of how do we have more providers? How do we get more providers here in the state of Wyoming, and focus on these type of incentives? And then third is all around ensuring our rural nature. How do we have telehealth and different technology aspects? And so there's a big appropriation there that was all around technology. And how do we think differently and use that as one-time funding that can be used in the long term? And so I think we're in the right direction there. Our different hospitals around the state are needing help right now. And so we have to balance that with help right now with being able to use that in the long term. But again, focusing in on technology, our workforce, and our emergency services.
And just to kind of echo some of the things that I already said, this is one of those things where we have the benefit of technology rapidly expanding the way it is. And I really believe that, with the mobile healthcare, with the stuff via phone, I think there's a lot of benefits that can be made there. I think, I look at the hospitals that we built just recently over in Pinedale and in Riverton and some of these other places that we're potentially doing. It's fantastic that we have that capability, but it's hard to find providers that are actually going to come to one too. It's one of those things, we have to reduce the cost of living here. So we look at this. I think we got to look around, figure out pragmatically, okay, where are those holes in the state? And we've got quite a few of them, simply because we are such a state. But I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. But I do think it's a matter of getting the medical professionals out there, patients, those kind of things, the people involved, to actually sit down and figure out how we're going to do this stuff.
So the rural health transformation, certainly a benefit. They're temporary. And there's more to come. And the next governor will get to help prioritize those. And the work we'll do with this task force will guide that work. Now, I'm not saying the current funds aren't being put maybe in very appropriate places, but as you travel the state of Wyoming, as apparently we all are, let's go figure, right? There are different needs in different communities. In the Southwest, it's obstetric care, right? In the Northwest, it's something else. It's EMS. They're challenged in EMS. One service, 1.5 services. That's not enough for the it's challenging. So every community feels differently. Has different needs. We need to be responsive as a state government. We need to be responsive to what they're looking for. This top-down thing, we're guilty of it in Wyoming. We have some top-down stuff. That's not the way this needs to work. We're going to build opportunity. We're going to build capacity, and we're going to build some longevity of these things. They need to have that. They need to drive that in their communities. That's the discussion we've been having. We need to have more of. And going back to this, everybody has to be at the table. The payers have to be at the table. You, as employers who are paying for your employees' insurance, you need to sit at the table to understand the consequences to your business and your employees. Thank you.
Megan, Brent, Eric, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time, dedication. I mean, we can hear that in all of your voices. So thank you from the bottom of our heart. Thank you also for being very cordial today, sticking with the timelines. It helped us get through a lot of questions because we have a lot of questions for you, right? So we did very, very much. Stay up here with me on stage for just a moment. as we wrap up, and then I think they'll be happy to stick around and answer some individual questions for if you want to find them after this afternoon's event. Let me just thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate all of you coming out and spending your afternoon with us. Thank you for supporting your Greater and Chamber of Commerce. We look forward to seeing you at our annual banquet later this month and at Partners in Prosperity in July. Enjoy the beautiful summer that we have here in Wyoming. Have a great afternoon.
So we do have one more drawing from the Alzheimer's Association, and it is won by Natalia Mendez from Open Range Storage. So if you will come up here, we'll get that to you. Thank you guys from the Alzheimer's Association.